tune in if you want to hear So we Chad, Josh, Dmitri, and Marcus every Friday.
It's the Square Round Table.
Tune in.
It's the Square Round Table podcast. Let's have a blast. I know at work you had a long day. Just relax and tune in.
All right. Greetings, my freaks and geeks. What's going on? Welcome to the Square Round Table podcast. As always, I want to thank all of our viewers and listeners for joining us every week. Thank you guys for being a part of our journey, and thank you for tuning into another amazing episode. And guys, tonight is no different, but we do have a very special guest. So without further ado, please welcome visual artist, voice actor, animation director, producer. This guy literally does it all. Please welcome Mr. Carl Jones.
Thank you.
What's up, man?
What's up?
Oh man, like I was just saying, it's a pleasure to have you on. We're going to try not to fan out too much over the course of this podcast, but anybody that watches our show definitely knows that we've referenced a lot of your work so many times. So just getting a chance to actually speak to you it's definitely a big deal. So this is going to be fun. We can't wait to dive on into it.
I'm excited to be here, man. I'm honored that you guys asked me to do this, and I hope I am as fun as you expect.
Oh yeah, it's all good. Like I said, it's chill. We're just gonna have a really relaxed conversation. But the first thing I like to do with all of our guests, number one, is just to check in with you, just a little mental health check, just to see. You told us you had a lot of movement going on, but for the past year or this year, starting off, how's everything going for you?
What you mean, like just like mentally and emotionally?
Just in general, how you doing?
Yeah.
How do you feel?
I feel good. I lost my sanity a long time ago, so my mental health is probably really terrible right now. Now I'm working in this industry, man. I always tell people, like, you got to have some really thick skin, you know what I'm saying? Because, man, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, it can take a toll on you. But that aside, I'm good, man. I always felt, I'm from Fayetteville, North Carolina, man. I'm from like a small town with I knew nobody that was an animation producer or a cartoonist or a writer. I was really fortunate, you know what I'm saying, to make my way out of there and actually pursue my dreams and my career. So I always sometimes feel like I snuck in the back door of a club. And I'm waiting for them to kick me out, and they ain't kicked me out yet. So I'm always really happy that I'm still here every day.
Hey, that's awesome. There's nothing wrong with being humble. So we think that's really cool. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But completely, I've had people tell me that all the time, and I think a lot of people deal with that too, of just being like, "Wow, I'm actually here." But you definitely belong in the room for sure, man. Been in the room for a long time.
Most definitely.
So,
Yes.
Yeah. So we definitely believe that, man. But that's good stuff. I'm glad you're doing well. And you talked about where you grew up. I would love for you to dive into that a little bit more, because you obviously do a lot of stuff in the realm of TV, film, animation. We just want to know, where does that come from for you growing up in Fayetteville? Like, where did that come from?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think there's a few things I think that inspired me wanting to like get into cartoons or animation and comedy. I think the very first memory would be my dad, because he was an artist and he wasn't in my life for that long. Like, he left when I was like around 5. But when I was really young, he used to bring home like stacks of paper from work, and he would tell me to draw on the paper. So I would make it it was like a little ritual that we had, where I would go through as many pieces of paper as I possibly could before he came home from work the next day, and so I could show him, like, look what I did. So he would go through the stack. And I remember the first time he did it, he was like, look, you got all this space right here. You could turn over in the back and draw on that. So I got into this habit of trying to fill up an entire sheet of paper, flipping it over, fill up an entire sheet of paper. But at this time, young, I don't know. I just know I like drawing, but I didn't really wasn't thinking about a career or anything like that. But this just became a habit. Not a habit, but just a tradition between me and my dad, not knowing that this was probably developing my skills or whatever. And then got exposed to Saturday morning cartoons. So that was the biggest inspiration to me. I grew up watching probably the same shows everybody else watched, but He-Man and Transformers and, you know what I'm saying, G.I. Joe, like all of that stuff, man. A lot of the Hanna-Barbera stuff. But then I started getting into Warner Brothers, and I started to develop like a really specific taste for certain kinds of animation at an early age. I remember growing up watching Warner Brothers cartoons, but I only wanted to watch Chuck Jones stuff. Like Chuck Jones was, he was like my favorite director. So I would watch a lot of the Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner stuff. And so I just became, there was like certain people that I just gravitated to. Same way with Peanuts, like Charles Schultz was another person that I like really gravitated to. And then I saw Star Wars in the movie theater, and that shit blew my mind. I just remember sitting there in the movie theater, and I don't know, I had to be maybe like 60. I don't want to give my age, but I was really young. I remember I had, because back then they had these football helmets that you would put ice cream in. And I remember I was sitting there with this Cowboys football helmet, eating ice cream, watching the craziest shit I've ever seen in my life. And I remember leaving that movie theater, and although it wasn't animation, I knew I wanted to do something in this realm. You know what I'm saying? Like I wanted to bring something to life. Like I wanted to make some kind of world like this. And so I was making spaceships out of toilet paper and toothpaste boxes, and you know what I'm saying, using whatever I had and just exploring my creativity and imagination. And then as I got older, it just always stuck with me, man. I got into comic books and all that kind of stuff. And probably the same thing like a lot of kids did. And then I think in terms of comedy, I guess one of the things that really started to get me interested in comedy was Richard Pryor. Like when I discovered Richard Pryor and I got a hold of a couple of tapes, and I would just listen to him over and over and over again. And at that time I had like a Walkman, and I remember I would put the tape in, and the Walkman would play one side and flip over and play the other side. And so I would go to sleep like listening to Richard Pryor, and then I got into Eddie Murphy and Red Fox, and I was just amazed at like their storytelling ability and how funny they were. So then I would go to school trying to do the shit that I was listening to on these tapes. And I was able to make a few people laugh. And that was the thing that made me want to go to school. I wanted to go to school each day to try to find a way to make people laugh. That was, at one time I was even thinking about possibly doing comedy, but I'm a shy person. So it just it wouldn't really work. But yeah, but those are just some of the early inspirations. And then as I got a little older, I got into Alfred Hitchcock and started looking at like people like Ray Bradbury. I was reading some of his stuff, and Something Wicked This Way Comes was I thought was like just like a brilliant book and a movie. But so I had all of these different, I don't know, things that were inspiring or fueling me to want to tap into my own creativity. And I can go on and on. Like my mom, my mother, because I was growing up like right in the height of the crack epidemic, right? So there was a lot of shit going on in my neighborhood, and my mother was trying to keep me away from it. So she would put me on punishment a lot of times. So what I would do was I had a drawing table, which that in itself is another story, but I had this drawing table and I would face it towards the window, and I would literally just spend a lot of my summer just like drawing people that I would see outside. But there was a lot of stuff going on outside of my neighborhood, and it just became like a thing, man, where like that was an escape for me. You know what I'm saying? It was an escape from the reality of where I was living. And also it was just like a way for me just to really explore my own imagination. And it just stuck with me.
Nah, that's really awesome. Like just some of the references that you have. Like I said, when you mentioned, so funny you mentioned Ray Bradbury, because I'm obsessed with Ray Bradbury right now. So
oh, wow.
Yeah, and not to age you like you were saying, but just a quick little side note. Me and my brother, like we're really into retro things, and it's retro to he's only 20, so it's retro to us. But he just got us 2 Walkman. So like when you were talking about that, I'm like, man, I got my Walkman. We just got a couple of them off of eBay. I'm obsessed. Like I got so many cassette tapes I've been buying. Like that thing is awesome. Like yeah, and like I said, not to age you at all, but it's definitely a little retro to my brother and I, but it's dope, man. It's dope.
Yeah, for sure. No, like Chad said, I would say me more so has gotten into more old school retro things. I would say Chad probably has a little bit more. Chad's always been more interested in older stuff anyway, because Chad's into like old retro plays and stuff. But I would say I'm more me recently has gotten into more like vintage stuff. But let me not talk about plays and stuff, because like that's a whole thing.
Yeah.
Like we'll be
Chad will be here for hours if you talk about that.
You
should have said records, man. You should have kept it at records and left it alone.
Right. I should have just said records.
I could I can go on a tangent about that about like old vinyls and musicals. That's a whole other story. But as far as, like I said, some of the references that you had, Carl, I know like a lot of the stuff that you've done, it goes across like many different styles. And one of the things that you mentioned, just hopping around here, you were talking about your interest in Saturday morning cartoons. And one of the things that me and Joshua have been obsessed with lately was sugar and toys, and how that kind of has like a Saturday morning cartoon kind of feel. It's just a bunch of different cartoons put. It's almost like a, what's the best way to? It's almost like a, I almost say a black Pee Wee's Playhouse,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah.
just because you got like Kyle, and then it branches out into different cartoon sketches. What was the idea behind that show? Because one of the things that I really like about it is, number one, it's just hilarious. Y'all are going in on Drake something heavy. All the sketches about Drake like really kill me. But the thing that I like about it, other than that, is just the satire, and how you do have a lot of sketches that also show a mirror image of a lot of the normalcies that are going on right now and at the time that you were making them, that aren't the greatest, like police brutality and just racism in general. Like you had the white America that wanted to know why they couldn't use the N word. There was a whole song and dance about that. How was the process of you having that duality? We're making it funny, but you also wanted to get that message across. What was that like for you?
Yeah, the idea behind Sugar and Toys actually, it stemmed from a conversation that I had with Rob Sorcher, who was, at the time, he was the president of Cartoon Network. I was just asking him, like, yo, what do you think happened to Saturday morning cartoons? And he was like, they couldn't sell sugar and toys anymore. So
Oh,
they went away. He said we moved into a digital era, and so the toy sales went down. And he said, and because of childhood obesity and people being now concerned with the kind of food kids eat, it just made it not really a big market anymore. So I was like, wow, like we only had a childhood because these dudes were trying to sell sugar and toys.
I know, right?
You know what I'm saying? And so I was just like, I want to do something with that. So I got with my partner, Brian Ash, who I've been working with for years. And I was just like, yo, there's got to be some kind of show that we can do that kind of turns this idea on its head, where we kind of show, it's almost like we took the Saturday morning cartoon vehicle, but we used it to really point at a lot of hot button topics, or at least, or we've always done that. Like we always, Boondocks and Black Dynamite and Freaknik, we would go into some real uncomfortable places and talk about things, but it was always rooted in some kind of truth, right? Like even the fact that the adults were pretty much asleep at the wheel, you know what I mean, by not taking these children's future in consideration when they were making all of these cartoons. Because if you think about it, at the time, everybody had a cartoon. Like MC Hammer had a cartoon.
Play had one.
Yeah, Kid and Play. Everybody had a cartoon because they were just trying to sell products. And I was just like, how irresponsible is that? These adults like raising a generation of kids without any real care or consideration for what they're putting on TV. So then we just thought, what if we just did, like you said, like a fucked up Pee Wee's, but can we curse?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah.
Like a fucked up Pee Wee's Playhouse kind of thing. But the first idea actually was, we were actually going to get MF Doom to be the host.
Ooh.
Oh, wow.
And his partner in the show, his sidekick in the show, was going to be an imaginary little white boy. So it was like, it was crazy. And so at the time, we were really, because Doom had did some stuff for Adult Swim, so we had to connect with Doom. But he was in Barbados at the time, and he had some issues with it. No, not Barbados. He was in the UK, I think, but he had some issues with his visa or something, and so he couldn't do it. And so we were like, all right, we got to figure something else out. And so we started just retooling the idea, and we took it to Fuse and we pitched it, and they loved it. And and we did it. But that was the whole thing. Is at the end of the day, social commentary and satire is just the space. That's the sandbox we like to play in. It's just the difficulty with shows like the Boondocks and Black Dynamite is those shows take a long time to produce. Right, it's topical now. 2 years from now, when the show actually airs, a lot of times those issues You know what I'm saying? Those things kind of go away. We lucked out at times and we found some things that became a little more evergreen than we thought they were. Like even with the Obama episode or stuff that we did with like the Booty Warrior, like those kind of things ended up like working regardless, even though they was a little bit dated. But at the same time, social media wasn't like it is now. So it wasn't like everybody was familiar. There's people now that are looking at stuff we did in the Boondocks back then and just discovering that it was inspired by something real. You know what I mean? So for Sugar and Toys, because of the cartoon style that we chose, it was a lot faster. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't quite as fast as like South Park, because they can jump on something like 2 weeks, but it was still a lot faster. And so like when there was stuff going on with 21 Savage, we were still able to put something out about 21 Savage around the time that it wasn't too old. And so that was the fun part about it. And yeah, like I said, it's always like we ruffle some feathers, but look at it this way. Anybody that we poke fun at are people that we actually really fucking respect and love a lot. You know what I mean? I know that seems weird, but it's the truth. It's like we love J. Cole, we love Drake, we love all these artists, but we also can find the comedy, you know what I'm saying? And the stuff. Yeah, so it's cool. We did 2 seasons. It was a low budget show. And Fuse they never did animation before, and animation is an expensive medium. So they took a risk, and I thought it turned out pretty good. It's just that nobody really knew about it because it was on Fuse. So yeah.
No, it was a really cool thing. Like you said, even though you have a bunch of celebrities and rappers that you respect, y'all were definitely going in like the Ed Eddie, Kanye West. Just dude, y'all was going pretty hard, man. Me and Joshua were really like the off the wall Lego Atlanta.
Oh yeah.
The way you spelled Lego in Atlanta killed me.
It's just really cool stuff. And so you were talking about a minute there, just trying to get the host for the show, like how the drawing. How did you guys happen upon Kyle, which is like one of my favorite rappers, really dope dude?
Yeah, how did that come about? I know we had a short list of people that we were considering for the host, and Kyle was one of them. And Fuse, obviously, they're the network, so they had some say in it. And I think we narrowed it down to maybe 3. And I believe at one time we were trying to get like Quavo, and there was a couple other people that were really trying to get into animation. And I can't remember who the other person was, but Kyle just had this charisma, man. It was almost kind of Will Smithish. You know what I'm saying? He had this like real Fresh Prince of Bel-Air appeal. And it's really cool because he's also he's a big geek and a nerd. He's into like anime and he loves cartoons, and he's a great actor also. I don't know if you saw After Party on Netflix, but like
I did.
Yeah, he's amazing, man. So yeah, we met with him, and we just clicked immediately. I'm like, okay, yeah, he's the guy. And since then, he and I have been like good friends, man. And I'm actually helping him develop an anime that he has of his own. That's really crazy. And we're working with Colin Kaepernick and a few other people I can't name, but it's going to be pretty cool.
Oh yeah, you're talking to some like huge anime fans here.
Yeah.
I'm already excited. The wheels started turning when you said Kyle and anime. I'm like,
right?
I'm already here with you. You got a fan already.
Yeah, totally.
Go ahead, Josh. What's up, man?
Oh, well, yeah, especially like my wheels were turning like when I remember seeing it. But he also worked on Laser Wolf.
Yeah.
And I hadn't known that the actual Laser Wolf was Vince Staples. And Vince Staples is easily one of my favorite rappers. So, like, how did that even turn out?
Laser Wolf was created by Henry Bonsu, who he's a genius. He's like a brilliant animator, and he thinks very different. That's what I love about him. He's so unique, and he has his style is very unique, but also his voice and his style of comedy is really unique. But so he used to be the creative director at Giphy. You know what I'm saying? On your phone, whatever. Yeah, and that was his day job. And he's a freelance artist as well. But he pitched the show to Adult Swim. They really liked it, but he needed a showrunner, and he was a big fan of a lot of the work that I did. So he and I met. I got what he was trying to do immediately. We clicked, and so we started putting the show together. And yeah, Vince Staples, that's who he wanted. That's who he wanted to play Laser. That's what he had in his head for Laser Wolf. And what's really interesting is the God character, right, in Laser Wolf. That was originally supposed to be DMX.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's a crazy story. So I wasn't there, but they had so Henry and a couple of the producers had to meet with DMX, right? Like in Vegas, and to talk to him about the role. And so Henry's telling him about the role, and he's like, all right, hold on a second. I gotta go talk to God. I'll be right back. And the nigga went upstairs, right, for like an hour. It was like, and then he came back down. He said, God said I can do it. But the only way I'll do it, he said, is if you change the spelling. So they spelled it Gawd. So, yeah, so it was crazy. But then I want to say he got arrested or something, and so he wasn't able to do it. I think he got arrested or he went to rehab or something like that, or both. But that would have been really dope. I was really excited about the possibility of having DMX play God. Yeah, but Vince is he's a pro, man. That guy he's so dope. And what he brought to that character was because he played the character in such a way that it was really natural to his own person, to his real personality. But it was like because a lot of times you get guys who, especially when they're doing voiceover, they overact. Because especially even people who are seasoned actors, they have a tendency to rely on their physical body and their facial expressions and stuff like that when they're on camera. So sometimes when you're on a mic, they'll overcompensate and do a little, maybe overact when they're doing voiceover. But Vince was like, he was a real pro. Everything was so natural. All of his line reads were really natural. And he just did an amazing job. I love what he did with Laser Wolf.
Oh, and like you were saying, to that point, you just don't even realize how much stuff he does. He's got comic books out. Like I said, he does voiceover. He did another on Netflix. It's another anime that he dubbed in. So it's like he's literally everywhere. But speaking of voice acting, how about like you in the realm of voice acting? How did you even get into that area? And is that something that you would? I know you did it with Sugar and Toys as well, but especially in Boondocks, it's just the Booty Warrior,
right?
I'm sorry, Carl. I had to talk about it, man.
Right.
I like you, and I want you. We can do this the easy way or the hard way. The choice is yours. Yeah.
See, I wasn't even gonna ask you, but
No.
that's awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah.
But yeah, so more on that. I really wanted to lean into more so the start of your career. I know we're bouncing around a little bit, but of course, we talked about like where you got a lot of the resources from. Like you're talking about Star Wars and how you came up drawing and all of that good stuff. So how do you get from there and turn that into a career?
Bro,
like, how does that?
No, my story is crazy, man. What's funny? I meet a lot of people in Hollywood that have some very strange stories and how they made it. It's very rare that you find people taking a conventional route. Everybody's got some weird way that they got a lot of people, at least that I've met. But my story is really interesting, man. Let me say, I'll give you the short version. So I was selling bootleg movies and CDs, right? In North Carolina. I was like the Nino Brown of bootleg movies and shit. I was running stuff. Like I had people selling stuff for me. It was a whole thing. But at night, I would come home at night and I would be on my drawing board, you know what I'm saying? Like creating all these ideas and writing stories and stuff. And I was just like putting it all away in this big box that I had sitting beside me, never really knowing like how I was going to make this dream I had happen. Because it was just really just a dream. I knew I wanted to work in animation. I even told my wife at the time, I remember one time we was in the kitchen and we was going through some struggles or whatever, like with bills and everything like that. And I told her, I was like, yo, I don't know how it's going to happen. I said, but I feel like I'm going to be working on a hit Black animated show. I swear I said this to her.
That's crazy.
And this is, and I remember I told her that. And I don't know, I could envision it, but I didn't know how I was going to get there. And that's why I try to tell a lot of young people, man, like that focus is important, bro. Like being vivid too, not vague. You got to see yourself where you want to be. You got to see it. There's real power in that. So I didn't know how this was going to happen, but when I'm selling bootleg stuff to make ends meet or whatever, and I had a situation where I almost got killed over a Flubber movie. So what I used to set up a table right behind the projects, like around 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning when the clubs would let out. This was at like a little convenience store, right? So the clubs would let out and people would come through and they would buy movies and stuff like that, right? And sometimes a lot of dudes from the projects would just come over and just buy stuff. So one night this guy came back and he had a movie in his hand. He was like, yo, he was like, I want my money back, bro. He's like, I put in this movie. I was going to watch it with my daughter. And he's like, yo, man got up in the middle of the movie and just walked in front of the screen. So I was like, when you go to a real movie theater and somebody gets up and walks in front of the screen, you can't get your money back. I thought that was pretty clever. He didn't like it so much. So
that was heated.
So he ended up leaving, right? He was pissed off and he left. And then, so I'm in front of my table with my boy Hood, and I see a car creeping up with a bunch of niggas in it, right? And they roll up, and I see the dude on the passenger seat. He's in the passenger seat, but he got this arm down and this arm on the window. And I said, that's not a good sign. And it was the same guy. And they rolled up, and before he even could pull out a gun, my spidey senses went off. So I grabbed my boy. I was like, yo, get down. As soon as I got down, so I had a van that was behind me, and he shot out the windows of the van. And my boy Hood was like, yo, let's go get them niggas. I was like, you go get them niggas. I'm going home. I'm done. So I remember I went home and I was just like, yo, I was sitting on the edge of the bed and I was just thinking, I was like, yo, I got to do something, man. This shit is crazy. And then I was getting in trouble with the law, you know what I'm saying, with the movies and stuff, because the movie industry started cracking down on us. I had a couple run-ins with the feds. It was getting crazy. So as luck would have it, I meet a friend of a friend who actually was working on a comic book, but he was an animator, right? His name is LaShawn Thomas. I don't know if right? But he also worked on the Boondocks. But he had just moved from New York to North Carolina. And so me and him started hanging out real tough. And we both like anime and, you know what I'm saying? And he'd be up late night drawing, so I'll be drawing. And so we just started just hanging out. And so he had a friend in New York, Brian Ash, who was working at the time, he was working at Rockefeller, and they were trying to develop an animated series for Beanie Siegel, right? LaShawn was like, yo, do you want to try to do some designs for this? I'm like, what? I'm like, yo, that night, I just started like putting some designs together. And the name of the show was The Playpen, right? And so they had a handful of artists that was presenting materials to try to get the job. So when they saw my stuff, they really liked it. And so they flew me out to New York, right? And yeah, so I got out to New York and I started developing this cartoon series with Brian, with Rockefeller. I met Jay-Z and, you know what I'm saying, Beanie Siegel, the whole State Property crew. And then Beanie Siegel got arrested for attempted murder. So that killed the cartoon, all puns intended. So then from there, I went back to North Carolina. What the fuck am I going to do now? That was my only opportunity. I thought I was like I was about to get on. I'm about to be working for Rockefeller.
Right.
And it just went away, man. And then at the time, my wife was like, we gotta be in LA. That's where it's happening. You gotta be. And I'm like, I've never been to LA before. I don't know. I was hesitant. So what she did was she put in a 30-day notice at our house, right? And I don't know many women that would have done this. She put in a 30-day notice without telling me. She didn't tell me until 2 weeks in. And she said, we're going to LA and we only got 2 weeks to move. I'm like, yo, what are you talking about? So I'm like, I'm tripping. I'm flipping out. But she knew that was the only way that she would get me to make a move like that. So we literally packed up everything, man. Had my mom watch the kids. We packed up everything. And Brian Ash, the guy that actually got me the job with the play, Rockefeller, he moved to LA and he offered us a place to crash until we could figure something out. So we get to LA, right? Okay, first, actually, let me back up. Before we drove out to LA, we flew out, right? So we flew out. When we flew out, I was reading an interview about Aaron Magruder in the Comics Journal, right? I was like, yo, I love this dude. And I was already a fan of the comic strip, but I was just like, at this time, there's no show. So we get to LA and it was Saturday and Brian is Jewish. So, it's a Sabbath. So he was like, yo, you could take the car because we're going to be staying home all day. So me and my wife, we started driving around LA. We turned down Melrose. And I only turned down Melrose because I knew of the TV show Melrose Place. I'd never been to LA before. I was just like, oh, there's Melrose, like Melrose Place. So we turned down Melrose. I see this little short black guy walking with a t-shirt, with a Huey t-shirt on. And I was like, yo, I think that's Aaron Magruder. I was like, yo, pull over. So she pulls over, I hop out the car. And I was like, yo, man, I'm a fan. And I draw and I write and I'm just doing the whole thing. And he sat there and listened to me. We exchanged information and I sent him some samples of my work. We did a lunch or a dinner, and we clicked instantly. And he said, look, I don't really have, he said, only thing, he said, I would love to work with you. He said, I have right now is the comic strip. And he said, I really need some help, like drawing the comic strip. I'm like, bruh, let's do it. So we went back to North Carolina, packed up everything, drove out. And then I didn't know if this was going to pay money or not. So I had to get a job at Fry's Electronics. So I was like, I didn't want Aaron to know because I wanted him to think I was a professional. So I was at Fry's Electronics, but I was drawing the comic strip in the break room, then going back out on the floor, helping people find plugs and shit. So eventually it got to a place where I couldn't juggle both. And because he was like, dude, he's like, what are you doing? What do you got another job or something? I was like, I work at an electronics store. He was like, all right, yo, you should do this full time. And so he started paying me to work on the comic strip full time. Then the show got picked up. So when the show got picked up, I was, and that's a whole long story, but basically, because I had no experience, but none of us really had any experience, to be honest. Like there was a couple people that been in the game a little bit, but there was a lot of fresh talent that was working on the show. And then I brought LaShawn onto the show, who helped introduce me to Brian for the Rockefeller gig. So he and I are close. He's a dope artist and director. So I brought him on the show. And yeah, the rest was history, man. I jumped in and just started learning as I went. You know what I'm saying? I was in the writer's rooms. I was also doing some character design work. I was doing some storyboard revisions. I was in the record sessions. I was basically becoming a producer in the first season. So Sony saw what I was doing, and Aaron, and look, Aaron, he really, not only did I learn a lot from him, but he actually pushed Sony to actually hire me as a producer because I was doing that work. You know what I'm saying? And so with no experience, they elevated me to a producer on the first season. And from there, I just hit the ground running, man.
That's an amazing story. That's
a great story, man.
That's crazy how you just randomly find them just walking down the street.
Around. Yeah.
And just
and
run up to him.
Yeah, and it's funny because it's who else would have on a Huey shirt at that time? Because like you said, the only way you knew about the Boondocks is if you read the comic strips. And I know for me, I was always a big fan of the comic section and the newspapers on the weekends. And I ain't care what my granddaddy had. I was like, give me the comics. And he was like, he'll hand them to me and I'll read them. But I discovered the Boondocks because it would be through the week and it was the black and white. I was like, oh, this is dope because I had never seen little strips of black characters. And like you said, that was before social media, internet, and all that. So I tried my hardest to find a gateway to it. And then it was out of nowhere, the show just appeared. And I said, well, hold up, this is a show about the comic strips. And then, just like you said, it's crazy because how everything coming full circle. I was just I was already in the show, regardless of how it was gonna be or whatever. I saw it, I was like, man, I'm watching it. I gotta put people on because this is the best thing ever. And even these guys, I remember when I first met Chad, we was already fans of the Boondocks, and I used to tell him, I was like, bro, it used to be a comic strip. He's like, no, I didn't know that, man. I was like, yeah. I was like, yo, it didn't just come out of nowhere. This was a long time coming. So It's dope to hear that story because it's so cool, to hear how you got into that. And then just on us in the outside world, seeing it happen, you've been a fan of it for so long. So that's really dope, man.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I was gonna talk about I was thinking your whole movie theater story, the bootleg thing, and think about the movie theater episode or whatever like that.
Yes.
And how they brought all the food into the movie theater and they were like, get out of the way.
Man, yeah. The show was so relatable, man, in so many ways.
Yeah. I'm just can we give a quick shout out to Melrose Place though? For sure.
Yeah. Sure. Yes, man.
Dog, big shout out to Melrose Place, man, because without that, you wouldn't have been let me go down
right? Exactly. Oh, man.
Let me go down Hollywood Boulevard or something.
So, look, Aaron would have kept walking, and you would have...
and it would never take place. That's crazy.
It's crazy.
That's crazy coincidence, man. It's that's such a crazy story. It really is. It had me on the edge of my seat because I'm just it just keeps building up. It just kept building up.
Yeah, no, totally.
They say truth is stranger than fiction, man. I wish I was making this up. But I really believe, man, just to going back to what I was saying about focus, I was a strange kid, man. Honestly, growing up, I saw myself like I wanted to be a cartoonist first. And I remember I remember, but I was so focused and so intense about the things that I wanted to do. Like I remember I would find any newspaper I could possibly find just to get the comic section out of it. And I would collect them. I would cut these comic strips, like my favorite comic strips out, and I would collect them. So I would take, my mother used to have a bunch of old photo albums. So I would strip all the photos out of them and put my comic strips in the photo albums, and I would store them away. You know what I'm saying? Which is crazy because then relatives would come over and try to look at pictures of our family, and it's like the Peanuts, and you know what I'm saying, and Beetle Bailey. But yeah, but I was just obsessed with it. And even I always kept a sketchbook since my dad got me into the habit of filling up a piece of paper, drawing on stacks of paper. So I would have, throughout the years, man, I would gotta say it's gotta be hundreds of sketchbooks. I would say at the least maybe 200 two to 300 sketchbooks I probably went through. I wish I had them to this day because I'm upset. To this day, I keep a sketchbook on me. You know what I'm saying? I got like a drawer full of them right now. You know what I'm saying? It's just an obsession of mine. And I feel like having that kind of laser focus, and it's a little, to some degree, I almost feel like I might be a little on the spectrum just because there's a lot of things I'm clueless to. And that's why I'm glad I got a good woman on my side because real life shit, I'm not that great at. But this is something that I'm so passionate about, like animation and writing and cartooning, that I think it was inevitable because of the focus that I had since I was a kid. This is the only way I saw my life going. I just didn't know how I was going to get there.
No, I definitely understand that.
Yeah, I can get that.
Yeah, definitely. We all, my bad, excuse me. I was just going to say we all could definitely relate to that, especially me, because it's our way of thinking is similar because that's how I am. I was like, I don't know. I'm still in that state now. I'm like, I see myself where I want to be. Like you said, it's just, how it's going to happen. Because even like when I was a kid, I was like, I know I'm going to do something where it's going to be cartoons, it's going to be film. It's going to be something. I used to play with my toys and actually make full feature films and stuff. I used to go and try to draw the comic strips like I seen, all that stuff. And like you, I wish I would have kept a lot of my stuff too. Because I can't even look back and see the progress. But it's so dope how that vision and how you keep that tunnel vision. Because I tell a lot of people that all the time, man, you really gotta put yourself there and put it in the universe. Because if you don't, it's like a lost dream and it's just staying inside and it's just gonna stay there forever. So you gotta put it out there.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and then things just like getting older, like things just get in the way. It's like you got, them. If you said that working at Fry's and stuff, like them bills, man, they get to you.
Yeah, they do, man.
The other thing I learned was it's just never too late. Because at the time, I had 3 kids, a wife. There's a part of me, like I know there's a part of me that could have just said, you know what, this is going to be it. You know what I'm saying? Just make yourself comfortable, figure out how you can just continue to sell these movies without getting caught by the police or whatever. But there was something burning inside of me. I'm like, nah, there's another chapter. I know, you know what I'm saying? I gotta figure out how to get there, but I could not stop dreaming. And that's the thing, man. And one of my OGs, Dame Dash, like one of the things he always says is if you have an opportunity to dream, like why dream small? It's a dream. It don't cost you nothing. So dream big as you fucking can. Like
exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Those kind of words always resonate with me. So even to this day, as we start looking towards the future and things that we're trying to build, bro, we got some crazy shit in the works right now.
Hey, man.
That's what's up.
That's what's up, man.
People ain't ready.
You keep doing it, man. We appreciate you, man.
We do.
Keep doing it.
Definitely.
Keep doing it.
We're excited to see it, for sure.
Yeah, totally. Just with stuff like that, I always love hearing. It's like how artists just got their start.
Yeah.
And just the ways that they were able to matriculate through the whole thing. Because we've talked to other creatives and they say similar things, how, there's no 1-2 ways to do multiple things. But it's just really interesting how you said it's real important to be able to see yourself in that dream. That's definitely interesting. And not just with that, but also really, I guess, having an idea of your creative process as an individual artist yourself. And I was wondering, where did the idea of the bubble, it's the Bubble Goose Ballers.
Yeah, so yeah, that came about. The idea for Bubble Goose Ballers came about when I was a kid. I grew up, like I said, in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and it was in the height of the crack epidemic. All the ballers in my neighborhood, you know what I'm saying, wore Bubble Goose coats, which I'm sure like everybody can relate to if you came up around the era or even beyond that. It was just, so back then, for me, it was like a status symbol. Like the Bubble Goose was like if you had a dope Bubble Goose, 9 times out of 10, you was making moves. Despite how you was doing it, it was still somewhat aspirational to me in context, right? That was something I aspired to be like. So I would draw these characters with Bubble Goose coats. And one day I got really clever and I was like, yo, I'm going to create a goose with a Bubble Goose coat. So I drew this like really funny goose in my sketchbook. And it just stayed with me like over the years. Like I could not stop drawing this character for some reason. And so I tried to set it up as a TV show at one time with Adult Swim. And this is right after Black Dynamite got canceled. And that's an interesting story too. But because I did an interview on CNN actually about police brutality, which is crazy. They had me, an animation guy on CNN talking about police brutality, but it was because we did a special episode of Black Dynamite. It was like an hour season finale called Wizard of Watts. And then we dealt with... I
remember that.
Yeah, we dealt with police brutality. So anyways, not to get too winded on this, but so I did the interview and maybe I said some things that ruffled feathers or whatever, but after that interview, the network called and it's like, yeah, that's not the kind of attention that we want. And we feel like this show is maybe a little too smart for the network. Like it's because they thought they were getting a blaxploitation show and it probably turned out being more whitesploitation than anything. Yeah. And so anyways, so they didn't want to do the show anymore, but they were like, we do want to work with you if you got something else. So I was like, I do got this character. I got to really figure out what the show is. But I talked to them about Bubble Goose and they were like, yeah, let's hear more about it. So I pitched it to them and we started working on the show, but we had some creative differences. One of the problems they had with it was very cartoony. It almost looked like something you would see on Cartoon Network or Nickelodeon. And I did that intentionally because the comedy was going to be really edgy. You know what I'm saying? And I wanted to do that in contrast to the cartoony kitty look that it had. But the Adult Swim were afraid that people will get confused. They won't know if they're watching Adult Swim or Cartoon Network. And I'm like, okay, whatever. And then when we got into the script, I wrote this story about Kanye West, right? Where Kanye was basically like Bubble Goose and his friends were trying to get the new Yeezys, right? But the line was crazy long to get the Yeezys. So they found a time machine, right? And they went into the future, but they went too far into the future. And because they were really just trying to get it in the front of the line, but they went way into the future and the world had been taken over by Kanye. So anybody that wasn't wearing Yeezys, Kanye was cutting their feet off. He had TMZ in a concentration camp. They had to go through Kim Kardashian's ass to find him. It was like this whole thing. It was like, we made it into like, the ass was like a giant, it was like a giant like cave. And there was like an asteroid attack, but it was like black basketball players and rappers and shit like trying to like knock their spaceship out of the air or whatever. But anyways, so they were like, no, we don't want to do this. And the reason was, believe it or not, we don't think Kanye is relevant right now. We don't think that's a relevant.
Whoa.
Okay.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was faced with this dilemma, right? They wanted to do the show, but they just wanted me to change the story and they wanted me to change the look. And I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna walk away with it. And so I asked them if I could just have the rights back, and they gave it to me. And so a couple years had passed, and I just didn't really think about it until I started learning about NFTs and Web3, which really at one time I didn't understand at all. I was just like, why the fuck are people paying all this money for an ape and a hoodie? I don't get it. I just don't understand it. Like, why are people selling JPEGs? This shit makes no fucking sense. And so I didn't jump into it right away. It took me a while. And the reason why I did get into it is because I began to understand the real utility behind it, right? And I saw it as a means of seeding and growing IP, building brands, and building a community around IP, right? So I can introduce this character Bubble Goose in the entire scope of the world just using NFTs and Web3, and then building a community strong enough so that we can have enough leverage to go to a studio or a network and do it the way that we want to do it, right? Mm-hmm. Because a lot of times in Hollywood, you have an idea, you go to a network and you sell it, right? And they give you pennies for it, basically, and they own it in perpetuity, right? From here out into the universe, which is the craziest thing. It literally says that in the contract. Like you can't even go to another planet and do that shit. It's like they own your shit forever, everywhere in the universe. What that means is basically not only do you don't have ultimate creative say, but you also don't really get to profit from it the way, you know what I'm saying? You don't own it, right? So they pay you to work on the show and to make the show, but there's not any real residuals or back end ownership that you get out of it. So I had reached a point in my career where that propelled me into the NFT space because I saw more independence. I saw that there was an opportunity to create what we call fractional ownership and community wealth. So it's not just me making money, but everybody that supports the project making money. Because think about it this way. When we did Boondocks, I always say Boondocks would not have been what it was if it wasn't for the fans, right? Like we had a strong fan base that really rocked with us and supported it. So imagine a world where everyone who really believed in a particular show can now also profit from it and profit from its success. So you are helping to grow it into a success. So why shouldn't you be able to profit from it too? Almost like a stock. You know what I'm saying? So this is what got me really excited. Oh, so now these fans become almost like shareholders in a company, so to speak, right? So they own stake in the actual IP. And I just love that idea. So we launched it as an NFT project. We sold out 10,000 NFTs in less than an hour. You know what I'm saying? And we did it right in the middle of a bear market so the market had crashed. And we still sold out. And it goes to show you how much people believed in me, what we're doing. And now we're on a creating toys, clothing, and we're partnering with Stupid Buddies, Seth Green's company, to do the TV show. And we had a bunch of other plans for it. But that's how it came about. That was my reasoning for even getting into that space.
That's awesome. So one of my main questions from that is it a evergreen thing? Is there still a way for people to buy stock in Bubble Goose, or is that something else like not there anymore?
No, still you can go to. So here's the thing, right? The NFT space, there's no Black people in it. I'll put it this way. There's no real Black NFT founders in the space. There's not a lot. And there's not a lot of us that actually are even in the space, period. And part of the reason why is because our very first introduction to the NFTs was a monkey with some hip hop clothes on. So people were kind of like, what's that about? But also, it's such a coded, and even understanding what an NFT is difficult, right? Like it's non-fungible token. What the fuck does that even mean? So it's like, I'm just saying it's really hard for us to really, get into the space because we don't understand it. And you got a lot of bad actors in the space, as they call them, or people who are, running scams and Ponzi schemes and all kinds of stuff, man. So it becomes really difficult to get a lot of us in it because we don't see enough of us in it, number one. And number two, we just don't understand it. So right now, you can set up a Phantom wallet or a digital wallet, right? And you can go to like OpenSea or you can go to Magic Eden. These are two marketplaces where you can actually purchase an NFT, right? And that NFT is going to come with certain utilities and afford you access into the entire scope of what we're building, right? So that's the way to do it. In the future, we're looking to make it a lot easier. So for people who aren't even crypto people, just regular people that want to support the project, they could, can do it without having to have a Phantom wallet or a MetaMask account. These things a lot of times just deter us because we don't completely understand it. It takes some education. So aside from us trying to find innovative ways to make the process easier, we also want to educate our people more on the space itself. So we're in the process of putting together a few things that will help on the education side and on streamlining the process.
No, I applaud you guys for what you're doing. I think that's huge. And the fact that you're also trying to educate our community and our people, about things that are very important. Owning your own copyright, owning your own IP. Because if it's just your copyright, like there was another podcast called the Square Roundtable podcast, and they were out here killing it, getting numbers that we ain't getting. I'm gonna be mad. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, y'all got our name, and that's our product. That's my baby. And
there was at one point in time.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. There was at one point in time. There was a fellow Square
But we deaded that a long time.
Yeah, we took him out.
Yeah, but the biggest thing is just, especially as an artist and as a creative, like I said, that really touches me in a way. Because like you said, people, African American people, it's like there's just certain things that we do need to learn, especially if you want to be in the space. I was watching a documentary, not a documentary, it was a video a couple of days ago, and they were talking about certain IPs and certain characters. Like, for instance, next year, 2024, Mickey Mouse is going to be open source. Yeah. So it's just like things like that. But the amount of like technical business wizardry that Disney went through for that character and the amount of money that they rake in, and just saying that character is going to be open source, only one type of there's so many different types of Mickey Mouse on these companies, like I said, like a Disney, which is a powerhouse, they know how to do it. So the fact that you're out here teaching Black people how to do it and giving people the keys and the opportunity to own their own IP and to get paid, get this money from it, huge, man. So I take my hat off to you for that.
Yeah,
I got on my soapbox a little bit, but I
that's very important, because I didn't hear about IPs until I got in college, and I was taking like, what was it, film genre, and then my professor was talking about it and how like these like the movie studios and stuff have the IP and all that stuff. And I was like, I've never heard of this. And it just blew my mind, because I was like, how did I grow up loving this stuff and being around this community, and I know nothing about it? So just to piggyback off Chad, that is very important, especially for African American artists. So that we really do appreciate that and take our hat off, like you said, to you for trying to educate us in that.
Yes. Especially on
definitely.
NFTs.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Like,
Because I'm still trying to wrap my finger around that.
Yeah, but I hadn't realized how NFTs could be, I guess, a way to keep the ownership of intellectual property. But I guess I don't really know, because like the guy said, I'm super confused about NFTs as well. But based on what you said about the Bobo Goose Ballers, it seems like a really good way to, I guess, keep ownership of your ideas and kind of, I don't know.
Think about it this way, right? So the most important ingredient with NFTs to me is the community aspect, right? Because, okay, yes, you're introducing an intellectual property to the world, right? But you're building a community around this property, right, that allows them to prosper with you and the property. And the reason why that's significant is because, for one, you'll have people who, it's just, if you take a company like Disney, right? Disney has some very loyal fans, like people that love Mickey Mouse and they love the movies they make and they love the toys and the clothes and the merch, right? And then you have investors or shareholders in Disney, right? And these are people that see how they can profit from the success of the merchandise, the toys, and the stuff that people love. So imagine a world where you can create an IP where people can essentially do both, right? They can be loyal fans to the creator and also own a share or a piece of the company, right? Or the brand or the character. But not only that, there's a resale market that exists, right? So that as you begin to build value in the property, the value of their individual NFT goes up, right? And they can sell it on a secondary market. And then you also get royalties off of that sale. And when it sells again, you get royalties off of that sale. So there's a process in place that allows what we call community wealth, right? It's you probably hear a lot in Web3 and NFTs, a lot of people talk about decentralization. And that's a big part of a lot of what's happening in the space is decentralizing the power. Because right now, there's everything that the world is being ran by a very small group of people that are controlling everything. Every sector, you go from Hollywood to the banking system. If you create a decentralized way of banking and a decentralized way of ownership and creating IP, right? It's a more fair playing field. And not only that, but it empowers creatives so that you don't, it's because I'm not even somebody that's like trying to turn the networks into bad guys or villains. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that you now have an option, right? Because there's projects that have raised $20 to $30 million off their NFT, right? There's projects that have raised more and less than that. You know what I mean? But imagine if you're trying to really build a brand and you launch an NFT project successfully, and even with $2 to $5 million, that's enough to start really building a brand. You can get your merchandise started. You can get comic books, TV shows, movies in the works, or at least development, right? You can even start putting out webisodes. You can start really building a brand. And those people that are supporting the project, they become evangelists for you in a sense, right? So now they are promoting your project. Why? Because the success of it also affects them as well, right? So they're out there pushing and promoting it. So it's like imagine having 10,000 walking billboards. You know what I'm saying? And on social media, it's even more powerful than walking billboards because it can get reposted and reposted. So you can literally, Bored Apes is the best example of that. You know what I'm saying? And they're worth, I don't know how many $1 billion now, right? But they started out with a community, with a really strong community. And now they're a giant over like the course of a year. They're like, there's companies that to reach even $1 billion, there's companies that have been in the game for 10 years and you know what I'm saying, to get there. And I can go on and on. But the last thing I'll say about it is this. It may seem like a strange concept, but if you think about as we move into this digital age, right? Everything we do is about communication, right? It's like we could, who we are, like even down to your profile pic, it communicates something. The pictures you post communicate something. It's not enough that you went to Cancun. You got to take pictures of it and show people you went to Cancun, right? So even if you have a Warhol in your house, it don't mean shit unless you tell people, unless you show a picture of you with a Warhol in your house. And even if you see a celebrity, like you taking a picture of a celebrity doesn't mean as much as you taking a selfie with a celebrity. So you being in the picture with that person communicate something to the world. And so with NFTs, it is about the clout that comes along with that particular NFT project that you're associated with, right? So it's almost, so there's a value, it's almost like being a part of an elite club. You know what I mean? And so there is a value in how you represent yourself in the digital world. I say now, like if a tree falls in the forest and no one's there to tweet about it, did it really fall? Because it don't matter in this day and time if it can't be communicated into the digital world. You know what I'm saying? And that's not to say that, because I'm a firm believer in the real world that we live in and not taking that for granted too. But I'm just saying the reality is technology is evolving and growing. The more digital the world becomes, you're going to see NFTs. You're going to see people that want to go see a concert or a movie have to purchase an NFT as a ticket as an NFT. The reason why is because the technology that exists in Web3 is basically like, it basically provides a ledger, right, that gives that NFT its authenticity. And it has the whole entire history of that particular NFT recorded in the ledger. And it's transparent. You know what I'm saying? Anybody can view this ledger. So that changes the game. So think about taxes, right? Think about the IRS, or anyone who is taking tax dollars from us and then using it to better the world. If the blockchain technology is in place, right? Every dollar that is being paid to the IRS or paid for taxes will now have to be accounted for and can be seen by everyone because it's recorded on a ledger. So this is, when you think about just that technology alone, that's a huge game changer.
Oh, really?
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. That changes everything that we do.
Yeah,
not for sure.
So eventually, I guess you could say even, like books and stuff could be NFT'd or whatever, right? Or am I going too far?
Yeah, no, they could. Think about it like this. Any tangible, I think at some point, all tangible assets will be tied to a digital asset or a digital token or some type of thing to verify its authenticity. You know what I'm saying? Cool. Because look at it this way. You brought up Disney the other day, right? So I spend a lot of time like on eBay buying. If you go on eBay, you'll find there's Disney shit, Warner Brothers shit. There's all kind of stuff that's being sold and bought and trade or whatever, like on eBay, and Disney's not seeing a penny of it, right? Probably millions of dollars a day, right? Disney ain't seen a penny of it. So why wouldn't these large corporations want to put a system in place, right, that allows every piece of property that they put out to be connected to some, because the other thing is, you don't even know if you're getting authentic. You don't even know if this shit is real. A lot of times you get a collectible toy. There's so many good, the fake meows are so good today, especially on the sneak. I don't know if you're a sneakerhead, but sneakers are crazy. Yeah. Like they are so good now. Like I'm a big Salehi Bembury fan. And I remember I was buying some of his Crocs, right? And dude, the first couple pair I bought, they was fakes. You know what I'm saying? And it was like $300-400 for some Crocs. So anyways, I'm saying that to say, I think everything is at some point, if it's an asset, I think it's going to in some way be tied to some digital asset or token, so to speak.
Yeah,
no, I definitely get that.
Yeah, for sure. And then thinking that way, like it already is if you buy something online anyway, because you have the invoice that goes to your email, and you also have the shipping address You have like a tracking number or something. So it technically already does have a digital footprint.
Yeah. I mean,
So,
you
yeah.
think about like Fortnite, right? If you purchase a skin on Fortnite, right? Like, why is that? Why do you buy a skin on Fortnite? What is it's going to give you certain utility. And it's also something you want to brag about. It's something that you want people to see. You know what I'm saying? So that's the world that we in. And the NFT ain't no different from that. It's the same thing. It's like people buy an NFT and they make it their profile pic because they're trying to communicate to you that I am the owner of, I am a part of the, I am one of the, you know what I'm saying? That's what it is. So I think we're in a place just where our digital representation is almost just as important as our physical representation.
I agree.
You know?
Yeah.
Like you were saying earlier, it's taking the blueprint for what social media was meant for and what it became, and like turning it on its head and being able to literally just profit from the, like you said, the tree falling in the forest, and let me take a picture of it so they'll know it actually happened. Oh, that's cool. I like that. And you just broke down NFTs to us.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah,
And here's the thing, I got it. Like
I get it.
For real.
So, I got a
Yeah,
lot better understanding. So for sure.
Yeah,
Oh,
especially I was saying, like, especially in terms of being able to own something, like basically posting an NFT of I don't know, like a drawing, or I don't know, maybe an idea that you have. As soon as you make that NFT, it becomes a brand already.
Yeah,
So it's kind of like a cheat code.
Even with your podcast, right? This is an intellectual property. This conversation that we're having, it has value to it. It's a very specific point in time where these things came together to make something unique that can't be replicated, right? So there's a value to that. And if you have a bank of them, right? There's no reason why you couldn't create a situation where you have
Freaks and Geeks.
Freaks and Geeks, right? So where you have a Freaks and Geeks token or pass. Think about it more so like a pass, right? This pass, if you turn that pass into an NFT, right? You figure out what special access does this pass give people? Is it that, okay, yes, they get access to all the podcasts that you're making, but also they get some behind the scenes added value or some stuff that you recorded that didn't quite make it into the cut that everybody else is able to get. Or there's also swag, you know what I'm saying? Because I know you guys are going to start, if you haven't already, started branding with shirts and merchandise and stuff like that, because you are building a brand, and there's a voice and there's a lane that you guys are in that not everybody's in, right? So why not make that a special experience? And the interesting thing about how people think is weird, because it's like, the less access I guess the more scarce it is, the more it attracts people, because they're like, why can't I be? Everybody has access to it, then, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't have the same value. But if only a small group of people have access to it, then they'll pay more for it. You know what I'm saying? And so I think there's something there. And I haven't seen anybody do it with a podcast, but I guarantee you, if you spend enough time really thinking about a way to incorporate it and find the last thing I'll say is this, the key is this. It's not thinking about what you can get from the consumer, right? It's not about that. It's thinking about how much stuff you can actually reward them with. Think about it more so from a giving standpoint. Like, what more can we offer people, even outside the podcast, that will incentivize them to be a part of this elite club or this group that we're forming, that you need a token or a pass or an NFT to be a part of? And then the value of that NFT will go through the roof, because there's real utility. They know that when they get that, they maybe even get a one-on-one with you guys, or they get to, you know what I'm saying? Or you do an event where you throw like a party, as a Freaks and Geeks party somewhere in Atlanta or whatever, like that kind of shit. And only people who are holders get access to that party. That's the kind of things that people, especially in the NFT community, like they really get off on those unique afforded access, that unique afforded access that they have to a world that not everybody gets into. That's where the value gets built. But also the quality of the work, obviously, like, you want to make sure the podcast is good, and you want to make sure the brand is good. That's first and foremost. But I just mean the added value is all of those things all those unique experiences that you can offer people.
No, I like that. All that free game. We appreciate that.
Right?
I know, right?
Like, Marcus, I'm looking at you. I can see you already think about it, bro. Like,
Hey man, I'm just making notes in my head, man.
Oh,
like I used to do in college,
out.
man. I didn't write them down, but they all in here.
Spinning around.
right there. So definitely, no, that's awesome. We need to edit all this out of the final podcast. So Dmitri, just edit all this part.
I'm editing all the NFT out.
Dropping way too much knowledge.
Right.
All
Too
the
much
NFT
That free
out.
game, man. But yeah, Carl. So like I said, you're doing a lot of great stuff, man. We've been able to talk about your background, which gave us a look into. We definitely appreciate all of that, and especially what you've been giving us, talking about Bubble Goose and what you're doing with all of your NFTs. One of the last things we just want to jump into, because I think is really cool, man. I see you've been doing a lot of stuff, and on top of the Boondocks, like on top of the all of the projects you've been putting out, you've done some stuff with Megan Thee Stallion, and I know that's been a big thing going into your Martian Blueberry. So I just want to know, what is that, and what are you guys planning to do? Because I did get a chance to look at your website, but I definitely wanted you to explain what that project is.
Yeah, Martian Blueberry is it's a full service animation studio, and it's actually another way of saying strange fruit. And the reason why the reason why I wanted to launch that studio was because my years of experience in this industry, when it comes to doing Black shows or Black animation and really capturing the nuances and the specificity of the culture through animation, it's always been really difficult. There aren't any studios set up where they have enough Black artists and people that understand our culture. And this is a very specific way we walk and talk, and even the kind of jokes that it's just there's a lot of nuance to it that I think gets overlooked. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And when it does, to me, it makes everything fall flat. And that's something on the Boondocks that we paid special attention to, and we always micromanage every aspect of those cultural nuances to make sure that they were there so it would resonate with people. I would literally on camera act out just about everybody's stuff. Like a pimp named Slickback, Thugnificent. Like I would act it all out on camera, and then we would send it to the artists in Korea or Japan, whoever was doing the boards and the animation, and that was what they would use to capture those subtleties and stuff. But outside of being able to do that, it's just really difficult to communicate certain things. I'll give you an example. So with Huey, if you notice in the show, you'll never find Huey smiling. Right? Like we did that intentionally. Like you'll never ever find one moment where Huey smiles in the show. That was a rule. But Korea, they didn't understand. They were like, why he's a child? Like, why is he not smiling? and so we were trying to find a way to explain who Huey is, you know what I'm saying, to people who have no real context to what Black people have really been through and why but so I think at some point Aaron said Malcolm X, and they went, oh, oh, okay, now we get it.
Like, okay, we understand.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Right, they understand Malcolm X, but Malcolm X was an iconic, was a figure, right? But for everything else, it was just always a problem. I just got tired of having to like teach every little thing about the culture and make it was just like a lot of times it would send us over budget or over schedule because things would be coming in late because we got to do so much fixing, you know what I'm saying? While we had to redraw stuff and all that stuff. So I always had this idea in the back of my mind that one day I would do a studio that would bring in a lot of Black talent from all over the world that understood the culture so that we can do something that is very authentic. You know what I'm saying? So we started Martian Blueberry, and one of the first few jobs we did, we actually did a commercial for the Lakers with Danny Green, but then he got traded, and so it never aired. That was like our first project. I was like, damn, that was like we thought we was about to get our name out there. But and then from there we did a pilot for Trippie Redd, and that didn't go anywhere. And then we did this Meg Thee Stallion project came about because Meg and I are developing another thing that I can't really get into details about. But so when she said that she was doing this, she's dropping a new album, and she wanted to do, because she's a huge anime head. Yo, she's like a hardcore anime head. Like she knows way more about anime than I do. She's just for real. And so she sent me the album, and she basically wanted to do a music video for one of the songs. And so we animated. It's actually a hybrid. It's a live action and animated video, which hasn't come out yet. And we did it like months ago, so I'm hoping it comes out soon. But she also did you wanted to do these visualizers, right, for each of the songs. So we animated the visualizers, we put them out, and I'm sure you've seen some of them. And we just recently did a project with MLB highlighting the Negro League.
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't know that there were female baseball players that that played in that movie. So that was really dope because it's educational, and I think it's and I wanted to do it in a style that felt nostalgic and you know what I'm saying, but also had a little bit of weight to it, so you could really feel the strength of these people and some of the weightiness of the era of time that all this stuff happened in. And so that was a real fun project to do, and I think an important project to be a part of. So we're in the process of now putting those out, and we're looking to do more stuff in the future. I said we're a small studio just starting out, but we got a crazy roster of artists, man, from all over the world, and from Ghana, Nigeria, Brazil. We got some dope artists.
Oh, that's very, like I said, we definitely can't wait to see it. Were you about to say something, D?
No, I said that's what's up. I was just like taking it all in because that's cool. That's dope.
That's
awesome,
man. That's awesome.
That's so fucking cool.
I'm just tripping because I'm thinking like if I would tell my 10-year-old self that I would hear stuff like this, he'll be like, "Man, get out of my face with that." That is there's no such thing. It don't exist. Nah, that's dope, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, totally. And
yes.
But speaking about like just my 10-year-old self not even being able to comprehend, it's like talking to one of the animators of Black Dynamite, because I love Black Dynamite. I still love Black Dynamite.
Black Dynamite.
I love the movie. So when I found out it was getting an animated show, I flipped, man. So I just watched it recently, like last year, just for the hell of it. I had to watch it again. And then every time when I get to that final episode of the last season, I get so sad because I was like, damn. That was it. That was it, man. But yeah.
Well, we got something special in store, man, for Black Dynamite fans.
Okay, I'm ready. Because I used to watch that in high school every single time they came on Adult Swim. I was there. Me and my friends would talk about it the entire week.
Yes, man.
No, totally.
And the Mr. Rogers episode will always hold a place in my
heart.
Most definitely. That one in the Richard Pryor one.
It's funny, man. Just talking about the process, right? Both of those ideas started from like a real truth, right? Like Richard Pryor, a lot of people don't know, and I didn't even know this. Michael Jai White told me the story where he said Richard Pryor, he wanted to change the face of Hollywood. You know what I'm saying? So he wanted to start this company called Indigo, and it was like a all black production company. And so he threw a big party and brought all his closest friends, and he wanted to tell them about it. So he stopped the party, got on the mic, and he was like, "I want to tell everybody about this idea I had. I want to do this black company and take over Hollywood and all this stuff." And people started laughing because they thought he was telling a joke.
Oh,
you know what I'm saying? And I remember, according to the story, like his feelings were really hurt by that. You know what I mean? The fact that people didn't even take it serious. And long story short, it never got off the ground. But then that got my wheels spinning. I was thinking, like, what if Richard Pryor never wanted to be laughed at? Like, what if he wanted to be like Malcolm X? You know what I'm saying? Because he is a brilliant storyteller, and there's a lot of truth in what he says. But he has this gift that becomes almost like a burden to him that no matter how he says it, people just laugh, which drove him to cocaine. You know what I'm saying? So we went down a rabbit hole with this whole story. And it was the same way with Mr. Rogers, because I was hearing through the grapevine that Mr. Rogers had the most confirmed kills, and he was like the special ops or some shit like that.
He was that dude, man.
And I was like, there's no way that's real. I don't know if it is or not. It's an urban myth, but I ran with it. I'm like, because then I also knew that he went before Congress, and he was like, yo, I don't, because he was really cared about the kids, and he really wanted them to be taught the right things, and he was just like a really good-hearted person. And so I was thinking, like, what happens when his show becomes like commercialized, or the network executives are now like trying to make so much money and make changes that he doesn't believe in, and he reverts back to his days in the military. You know what I'm saying? It takes the kids hostage. You know what I'm saying? It got crazy, man. But that was like, but that's the kind of stuff I like to do. Yeah, it took it to a real crazy place, but it starts from some kind of truth.
Like, that reminds me of what is it, from the Boondocks, the Bob Ross one, where they go and do the town, they're spray painting.
Oh, I love it.
That was great. I love that episode.
And the thing about Boondocks as well, because you were saying that you guys for the most part, if I heard you correctly, you were like outsourcing the animation in Korea.
Yeah.
So what kind of in the early days, because I know you all when you were doing the comic strip, you had the style of the characters, but truly enough in the show, the characters do look slightly different than they do in the book, and they almost take on like a I would say like an anime-esque type of look. So was that intentional for you guys? Or like what was the process of designing the characters for the actual animated series? Or what was
I
that
know
like for you?
it was very yeah, no, it was very intentional. Aaron Magruder was a huge anime fan, and I think he was always pretty open about what he felt his own artistic limitations were, which I think he's a great artist, but it wasn't the comic strip was probably like in a perfect world, like he would even want the comic strip to be a lot more anime. But given the opportunity to do a show, of course, he wants the best of the best. So we searched like high and low for the best artists. And we found some studios in Korea that were really dope. We started working with we did some work with a few companies in Japan. It's always the language barrier, and there's also some cultural differences in the way that they do business and stuff. So it's a real tricky thing to navigate sometimes. But it was always intentional that he wanted the show to look better than the strip. So we brought on, there's a producer, but a really brilliant artist named Sung Kim. If you don't know who Sung Kim is, man, Google his work. He's one of the best artists I've ever seen in my life. Like he's the truth. Like this dude, he worked for Riot Games. Like he was doing like a lot of, after the Boondocks, he started doing a lot of video game stuff, but this dude is a beast, man. And he was the one that really brought the quality level up on Boondocks. Because if you look at season 1 versus season 2 and 3, and we don't talk about 4, but no, it looked good. It looked good, but I'm just
it's a whole other podcast.
Yes, but it's like there's a huge difference between season 1 and season 2 and season 3. You know what I'm saying? And that's largely because of Sung Kim. Honestly, like he's just dope.
Oh, that's awesome. So yeah, I'm gonna definitely have to look up a lot of his work. And for all of our viewers and listeners out there too, if you don't know, man, hit that Google. Like definitely check it out. But
Google
man,
University.
Yes, but
Right.
Carl, man, the amount of nuggets and just information you have dropped on us in this past like hour and a half, man, it's priceless, man.
Yes.
Like I said, for all of our viewers and listeners out there, say anybody that follows the Square Roundtable podcast, that we're all on 100 right now. This is just, like I said, it's just awesome, man. So once again, Carl, we appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to chat with us, man. It's greatly appreciated.
Oh man, no, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. No, this is fun, man. I mean, it feels like I'm hanging out with friends. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, that's nice.
Look, you amongst your own, man. You amongst your own, man.
That's what's up. Nah, bro, I'm willing. You want to ever have me back? Just let me know, because I tell you this much: I got a lot of industry stories that you guys would probably really like.
Yeah,
especially a lot of hair, man.
All of them,
especially the Boondocks.
Yeah.
Yes.
That invitation for sure. Like we're gonna have you back on. But yeah, man. So the biggest thing is right now, like we always do at the end of the show, we want our guests to just, like I said, the floor is yours, man. What do you want the viewers and listeners to know? Maybe your social media, maybe Martian Blueberry. Just let them know whatever you want to shout out.
Yeah. You can follow me on Instagram, and I am Carl Jones. Martian Blueberry's Instagram page is We Are Martian B. And we're also on Twitter. And we got a lot of cool stuff in the works. So some really exciting stuff there. And I hate that I can't really give too many details because, Hollywood be damned, man. That's how they.
I know, man. We already know, man.
NDAs.
Yeah, but it's some really cool stuff, man. And we're also forming a new company called Super Dope with Carmelo Anthony and Good Smile. Right? I don't know if you're familiar with Good Smile, but they're one of the largest Japanese toy companies in the world. And and that I will tell you a little bit more. I'll tell you about it I'll tell you a little bit more about it later once we actually get to a place where we're ready to announce it.
Awesome.
For sure.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really cool, man. So, yeah, all of that good stuff. And we definitely can't wait because, all of us here, you can't really tell because all of our screens are on except for Marcus. But I'm just like you, Carl. I comb up and down eBay all the time looking for collectibles, vinyls, records, like all kind of mess. So
Yeah.
I got it all behind me.
yeah. So just let me know, man, when y'all dropping stuff, because I'm definitely,
Right, I'm a
definitely
cop.
there.
I'm a
For
cop.
Oh,
sure.
Some
100,
things,
100,
100%.
Yeah.
That's what's up.
100, man. But
That's
yeah,
what's
so
up.
for all of our viewers and listeners, man, we'll put all of Carl's information in the description below, so no worries about that. And guys, just every week, guess what time it is?
Shameless
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 promotion.
promotion.
Because you didn't hit us with the falsetto this week, man.
Oh, you
What
want the falsetto?
happened?
Man,
Yeah,
you know,
where the
what's it?
falsetto at?
I've
Get
been doing a lot of,
you get that booty warrior falsetto.
Right,
yeah, you know what I'm
right.
saying? A little shameless promotional. I've been doing a lot of singing in the shower. Got to rest my voice.
Okay. Yep. Okay. Well, I'm expecting you to come back with the falsetto next week,
Hey, you
man.
know,
So, all right, cool. But
Yeah,
yeah,
hit us with a
y'all.
couple runs.
Right, just a couple of Beyonce. But yeah, guys, like always, this is our shameless promotional. So we are the Square Roundtable podcast. You can catch us every week on fandomlim.com. And our full website is squareroundtablepod.fandomlim.com. And one more time, guys, that is squareroundtablepod.fandomlim.com. What you got for us, D?
You can catch us on Rap Nerd on Tuesdays and Thursdays. You can also catch us on YouTube every week. If you like the video, smack the like button. Leave us a comment underneath the video of anything we talked about in this thing. If you want to also gush about Carl Jones being on our podcast, you know what I'm saying?
That's more than welcome.
Right, more than welcome in the comments. And hit the share button. And hit the bell underneath the right side of the video to get you notified of this video and future videos. And also hit us on all of our socials, our Instagram, our Twitter, and that pesky Facebook group, and eventually TikTok. We're working on a kink there.
Working on it, man.
We're gonna get on that. We're gonna get on that TikTok. But without further ado, guys, I would love all of our amazing hosts and co-hosts, and of course our amazing guests for the evening to introduce themselves one more time before we head out. And as always, I'm your host, Chad Singleton.
And I'm your host, Dmitri.
I'm Josh Singleton, hashtag yes, hashtag no.
And I'm Marcus Long.
And I'm Carl Jones.
For Roundtable Podcast, guys, we are out.
Yes.
Peace.
All right, peace.